प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः. Om. Dear friends, in the last two episodes we saw a rather tough portion of Gita. We are just seeing the second adhyaya of Gita, which is called Sankhya Yoga. In this we are seeing what Krishna is saying about the nature of the Atma. Arjuna is there on the battlefield with a dilemma how to fight. But Krishna wants to give him a larger picture. He wants to give him a big picture, because Arjuna also is a person who is well read in Vedas. Krishna would not say the same thing to a common man. Krishna would not say all this Gita to a common man. He told Arjuna because Arjuna is also a person who is acquainted with the Vedas, who knows what the Vedas say. So that is the reason why Krishna is telling him about the nature of Atma, about how a person like Arjuna, who is a Kshatriya, who has got a dharma, he has to perform his dharma. He should not waver in the matter of performing his dharma. So that is why he was explaining what is that Atma. And then we saw some very serious stuff in the last two episodes about how Atma is something which is of the nature of pure consciousness, and consciousness is something which is never born, and because we have to give some name to that consciousness, we have called it Brahma. And Brahma does not mean that it is a person. That is again one very important thing we have to see. When we say the supreme reality is Brahma, that supreme reality is not a person. It is not a person which is interacting with you. It is not a person which is coming down and then it is giving some boons or punishing people and all that. We visualize some other God form. We visualize some other entity, and then that whatever we visualize is the God who is in day-to-day touch with the world, who is supposed to be the creator, who is supposed to be the sustainer, etc., etc. But at the absolute level, what we call the highest reality is something which is of the nature of pure consciousness, which is infinitely existing consciousness. So that is what we saw in the last two episodes. So from there we will come to the next. What exactly is Krishna saying next? So then Krishna is saying what exactly that Jiva is. And then he was also saying that there is a great difference between what we think we are and then what Vedanta says we are. We think that we have some sort of social identity. I belong to a particular class in society. I am a male, I am a human being, and I belong to a particular class. I may belong to a particular community. I belong to a particular religion, I belong to a particular country, etc., etc. All my ideas of nationhood and then religion and all these things, they define my identity. But then when it comes to Vedanta, Vedanta does not say that. Vedanta says that your nature is that of pure consciousness alone. It is pure consciousness which is getting reflected in the Antahkarana. This Antahkarana, the mind, is something which is common to a human being down to an ant. Right from an ant or even a microbe, starting from a microbe right up to the biggest say animal, take elephant or something like that. So the mind is same, and whatever intelligence is there getting reflected in this mind or the body mind complex, so that is what is Jiva. So that is what Krishna has been saying. And then now we have read up to this 21st line, 21st shloka. Of course, we are not reading shloka by shloka, because if we read shloka by shloka, it will take several months. So instead of that, I am trying to summarize and tell you. So this 22nd shloka is a rather familiar shloka, which says that this Dehi, the person who is in this body, that is the Jiva, the consciousness which is identifying himself with the body-mind complex. So what happens to this Dehi? He says, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya Navani grunhati naroparani. This we might have heard here and there. The meaning is a human being, a jiva, transmigrates from one body to another. Transmigrates means he leaves this particular body, and then leaving this body is called death, and then this jiva transmigrates to some other body. So that is what he says. So then the question is, what is it? We have to understand as to what exactly is the thing which is transmigrating. Is it the consciousness which is transmigrating, or is it something else? Because consciousness is something which cannot transmigrate, because it is all pervading. It is there infinite, it is everywhere, it is associated with everything. So, it is not the consciousness which is actually transmigrating. Then what else is transmigrating? What else is transmigrating means there is what is called this antahkarana in a being, in any being, not only human being. This antahkarana again illumined by consciousness. Without consciousness it will not function. So, this in this mind, there is this mind along with the its capacity to learn things, and then the sense are the five senses. The five senses are also included in this mind along with the five senses, and also whatever impressions are there. There is a technical word called impression. What is this impression? Whatever work we do, suppose I come here, I am saying something here. So, after going out, so this whatever I have done, it leaves some impression on me. It leaves some good impression on me. Suppose I do something bad, I go out and then I do something bad. So, that also leaves an impression on my mind. Something else I do, I do some other good action that leaves some good impression on my mind. So, like that in the life of a person, let us take human beings only. In the case of human beings, in the case of a person, innumerable activities are there from childhood till death. So, all these activities, they leave some impression. In fact, the human being is a product of the past impressions. If I am sitting here today, I am the product of past impressions, because I have learned something, I have studied something for a period of some time, and then all those impressions are in my mind, and with the help of those impressions I am coming here and then trying to speak something. So, whatever we do at a particular time, suppose I look at a newspaper and then see some news item, I react to it. My reaction is dependent on the impressions which are already there in my mind. So, this impression, there is a technical word in Sanskrit, what they call samskara, and sometimes we also liberally use this word. So, he is a person with samskara, he is not a person with a samskara. There is another word called vasana, purvajanma vasana we say. Vasana means the impressions which are carried or which is coming from the earlier birth. Purvajanma vasana means the impressions, these latent impressions which are there accumulated in the mind. So, this mind is like a storehouse. Mind is like a storehouse of all the impressions in this life and also in the past lives. And that is, and we can sometimes question, we may have a doubt. I only remember this life, not even, in fact, most of us don't even remember many incidents in this life also. But then how do you say that they are in the past life? It is also having some impressions of the past life. Now, psychologists, there is a big research which is going on, what is called psychology of regression. Regression means going back and back and back. A person is hypnotized and then he is asked to say recollect what are his earliest memories. His earliest memories, maybe right from the time he was a suckling baby. So, like that, this is regression into the past life. So, this regression psychology is something which is very vogue, it is in vogue right now. And they also say that there are several cases where people have gone back to their earlier lives and then they have they realized what they were in their earlier lives, etc. So, anyway, we are not talking about the earlier lives now. My idea is to explain what this vasana or that impression is. So, what is it that transmigrates when a person leaves this body and another, because this is a general doubt which we all have. Is there really a transmigration? And if at all there is a transmigration, what exactly is it that leaves the body and goes into another body? So, what leaves the body and goes into another body is the mind with the 5 sense organs, that is the organ of sight, organ of hearing, organ of taste, etc. And then along with the backlog, this sort of backlog, this because mind is a storehouse of these impressions, good, bad and everything. So, and all these things, these are all products of some activity, some karma. Technical word is karma. Karma means any action, any activity. So, these karmas, the result of this baggage of these karmas, this is again, it goes to another body. So, that is what Krishna is saying here. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grunhati naroparani. Just as a person removes his say shirt which is soiled and then puts on a new shirt, You leave the old body and take up a new body. That's what he says. Then again he says, Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha. Again immediately he says, it is not the Atma which is transmigrating. Atma is there everywhere. This Atma is something which cannot be hit. Nainam chindanti shastrani. If you want to slash it with a knife, if you want to slash it with a sword, you can't slash it. You can't destroy this consciousness. Consciousness is something which cannot be created nor destroyed. It is always there. Then Nainam dahati pavakaha. All these pavaka is Agni, fire. Fire can't touch it. Your weapons cannot touch it. And then water cannot make it wet. And then wind cannot affect it. So like that he says, he goes on to say, Achedyoyam adahyoyam. So it is something, it is somewhat like space. It is somewhat like space. Suppose you take a sword and you want to wield that sword in the sky, in the space. What is the space is not going to be affected, sky is not going to be affected. So like that, this Atma is somewhat like space, and that is why Vedanta always talks about a part space and the external space. Part space means, suppose you take a big vessel, it may be a pot or a vessel. There is space in that also. And then suppose the part is broken. The space is not affected. The part is broken, but the space is not affected. Space remains as it is. So that is the analogy, that is the example which is normally given. And that is the reason why when a person dies, we might have seen in the burial grounds, we see that a person carries a pot, and then pot they make 3 holes. One round they go and then one hole, one more hole and one more round, one more hole and one more round. So like that, the 3 holes, they symbolize what is called 3 levels of body, that is Sthola Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, etc. And ultimately the pot is broken. What is the significance of breaking the pot? In fact, it is mentioned in one Upanishad. The breaking of the pot, it symbolizes that this pot is broken and this Akasha has merged with this Mahakasha. The mantras which are recited at that particular time show that this particular man has got rid of all the karmas, and then he is merging with that Brahman, that universal Brahman. So that is what the mantras say. So anyway, it is like that, Atma is like that. So he goes on like that to explain about the nature of the Atma. Then he comes to the one practical point of view. Now with this we have ended, or rather we have tentatively closed the tough portion of Gita, one tough portion. There are several tough portions like this. One tough portion of the Gita which talks about the nature of Atma, it has now come to an end. Now Krishna is talking in rather practical terms. Okay, this is at the absolute level, but what are you? You are a Kshatriya, you are a fighter, you are a warrior, you are supposed to protect Dharma. Then what is it that you are doing? So from that point of view, Loka Drushti it is said. Loka Drushti means from the point of view of your peers, from the point of view of your own friends and relatives who are going to judge you, who are going to evaluate you. So that is what he says. Swadharmam api chavekshya. We have now jumped to 31st shloka. We skipped several shlokas. 31st shloka of 2nd adhyaya. Swadharmam api chavekshya na vikampitum arhasi. So you look at your own dharma. Then what happens? Yadruchaya chopapannam swargadwaram. This is something which you have not chosen. You have not chosen in the sense you are not a battle thirsty person. It is something which is forced on you. The kingdom has been snatched by somebody else, and then we made all efforts to have some peace with them. In spite of all the efforts and all, peace did not materialize. So this is something which is forced, which is not forced in the sense which has incidentally it has come to you. It is not something you have been longing for. Then yadruchya. Yadruchya means that. Yadruchya means something which has incidentally come to you. Yadruchaya cha upapannam swargadwaram apavrutam. So that is what he says. Then he says, if you don't do this dharmyam sangramam, athachetvam ivam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi, then what happens? All your fame, all these days you have got such a great fame that he is an invincible warrior and whatnot. So all your talk and boastfulness about your invincibility, all that talk, it will come to nothing. So that is what he says. Swadharmam kirtincha hitva akirtincha api bhutani kathaishyanti te vyayam. All people will talk about, hey, Arjuna is a fellow who became a sissy on the battleground. He became something like, he just became like a butter, melted like a butter on the battlefield. So that is what people will say. Sambhavitasya cha akirtihi maranadatirichyate. For someone who has been honored earlier, this akirti or ill fame is something which is worse than death. Maranadatirichyate. It is something which is worse than death. So that is what he says. Then people also will say that bhayad ranadu uparatam mansyante tvam maharathaha. All these great warriors, so they will think that you are running away from the battlefield in fear. Bhayad ranad uparatam. So you are running away from the battle in fear. So that is what they say. And then this is something which is, and also they will tell all types of things. Avachya vadanscha bahun. Avachya, they will talk very, very cheaply about you. So that is what he says. So all this he is telling from a practical point of view. So what we have seen in this second adhyaya is, second adhyaya, in fact, it is a large adhyaya having about 72 verses. So here in the beginning, right up to say the 30th shloka, we have seen that Krishna was talking about from 11th shloka to 30th shloka. He was talking about the nature of Atma. That is rather tough philosophy, as I said. Then from then up to this particular shloka, this is 39th, up to this 39th, he talked about the loka drushti, that is what people will think of you. As a kshatriya, what is your dharma, what is your duty? So that is what he said. Then from 39th shloka, the emphasis shifts. Now he is going to tell about what is called karma yoga. So as I said, this second adhyaya is a large chapter which gives a rather gives an overview of the entire text, entire BhagavadGeetha. So that is why you find Sankhya Yoga, you find something about Karma Yoga also here. So Krishna is telling about Karma Yoga. So before going into this Karma Yoga, we have to see what exactly is this karma. Karma means, karma, what is our meaning of action? Because why we have to see is, Yesha te bhihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrunu. Then he says, karma bandham prahasyasi. By knowing this particular yoga, yoga means how should one do his activity, how should one go about his karma, how a person has to perform his karma on earth. So that is the point. So that is what is called karma yoga. Then what is so special about this karma yoga? So that is what is, and karma bandham prahasyasi. What is the result of this karma yoga? He says, you will get rid of, or rather you will go out of the bondage of karma. Karma bandham. Bandha is bondage. Karma bandham prahasyasi means you will go out of the bondage of karma. So that is what he says, how to get rid of the bondage of karma. Then we have to know what exactly, because we are not familiar with our own say all these traditional texts. In fact, till I read Gita, I never knew what is this karma. Till one reads Gita, till one reads some commentaries relating to that. By merely reading Gita, again we won't get anything. If you just read the text, you won't get anything. You have to go to some say elaborate commentary, elaborate commentary, or you have to listen to some teacher, and then you have to know the meaning of everything, the significance of everything, what is the meaning of karma in our tradition, etc. So karma refers to means an action, create, something like that. The is karma. Then what is this thing? Suppose I am sitting here, it is a karma. I go to office, I do a job, I take my paycheck, so that is also a karma. I go to some place, I do some bad act, so that is also a karma. Or I go to some place, a good temple or something like that, I give some donation, I do some other pious thing, I piously sit there for some time, meditate, etc. That is again a good karma. So like that, the karma, the human being's karma is actually, which is diverse in nature, which is so different. And the human being, because he is born in a society has already laid down certain principles about what is good, what is bad. In fact, this management of human activity is something which is a very big subject for all the people who want to keep social order. In fact, all our rishis, the people who wrote our Vedas, the people who wrote the Upanishads, the people who wrote various dharma shastras, Their concern was how to have some order in society, how to have some peaceful conduct in society. So that is what was the prime say motive for them. So for that you have to regulate some acts. So Veda, as I said in the beginning, it is somewhat like a super mall. So say something like a big mall where you get anything, where everyone wants to get what, everyone gets what he wants. So it is like that. But then human activity is so diverse. So that is why Vedas say, okay, you can do this thing. First of all, it says you have to do this thing. You should not do this, you should not do this, you should not do, and you should do, you should do. These are the do's and don'ts. That is something which is compulsory. It is something which is mandatory. Mandatory, it is called nitya karma. Nitya means something which is mandatory. Then it also says there are certain things like the rituals of passage. Suppose somebody, he gets married, something else is there, some other occasion is there. So these are all certain occasional duties. On such an occasion, suppose you are performing the marriage of your daughter, or you are getting married yourself. While getting married, what are the ritual? What is it that you have to understand? So you have to understand the significance of that vivaha, understand the meaning of that marriage. So it is only when you understand the significance, the boy and girl will be able to live together. So that is how there is a ritual there. So that is another thing which is compulsory. So nitya, after nitya, this is something which is occasional, or which is occasioned by something. So in English, or the sociologists, they call it the rites of passage, R-I-T-E-S, rites, the rites of, not R-I-G-H-T, R-I-T-E-S, the rites of passage. Moving from one stage of life to another, it is called a rite of passage. Then there are some other things which are permitted. Suppose I want to do some big yajna, and then I want to go to heaven, I want this, I want some rajya prapti, something like that, I want to become a king, I want to do this, that, etc. So this is what is called a desire oriented karma. For example, we have seen in Ramayana this Putra Kameshti, he wants a son and then he performs a yajna. So that is kamya karma, that is something which is, kama is desire. Kama does not mean sex alone, kama means desire. Kama is a very broad word. So kamya karma is desire oriented. And there are certain actions which are prohibited, that is nishiddha. So this way the karmas have been classified. We will know more about these karmas in the next episode. Om Krishna Arpanamastu.